Good morning, everyone, and special thanks for braving the cold weather and the bad conditions and everything and coming to the center despite all the obstacles. We appreciate it, all the support that we get from the center. By the song, you can probably tell that it's another direct disciple talk. This is our standard song that we have. It's very beautiful. And you can see that today is the birthday of Swami Adbhutananda ji, Latu Maharaj. When I think of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, this image always comes to my mind of a necklace, of a garland of beautiful gems, all different colors and different shapes and polished and shining and beautiful, with one exception. One of the gems is completely unpolished, like an uncut diamond, covered with dirt, a little rough looking, that no one will recognize that it's a precious gem. And this is our Latu Maharaj, Swami Adbhutananda. He was the only one of all the direct disciples with less education than Sri Ramakrishna himself had. He was the only one who was not from Bengal. He was broken Hindi speaker, later half Hindi, half Bengali, a very odd type of language that he had, and very simple and straightforward and frank and all of the things that Sri Ramakrishna appreciated. And in one sense, we can say that he was probably more similar, at least in his background, to Sri Ramakrishna than any of the others. It would have been easier for Thakur to relate to him because he's just a simple village boy. We forget, Thakur was a simple village boy, that he had practically no education. Is this better? Okay, sorry. Should I start over? Next time. Yeah. So anyhow, this was our Latu Maharaj, that of all the direct disciples, he was the one exception in many ways, in terms of the place of birth, in terms of his education, in terms of his unsophistication. He was a very simple, natural, frank, straightforward person, but equally great as all of the others in terms of his spirituality, even in terms of his wisdom. This was the interesting thing, that without any education, he had a certain type of wisdom that was greatly appreciated by all of them. Sometimes they would bow before the wisdom of Latu Maharaj, with all of their school learning and education, that he could cut through everything. He had that ability. So, never polished by the sophisticated ways of the world. He was just whoever he was, that's who he was, completely free from any refinement, just as I say, uncut diamond, a raw diamond. We have these images with the diamond. The two very nice things come to my mind. One, I think, is they talk about with regard to Holy Mother, that someone saw something look like a rough stone by the bathing ghat, and they used it to scrape off the callus on their feet and scrape it off. Then they finally see that it's a diamond underneath. And then Thakur's story about taking the diamond to get appraised by the different people, first to the eggplant seller. And one by one he goes, and none of them can recognize the value of it. So this was Latu Maharaj. Only those who had some deep insight could recognize that this was a great soul standing before them, because he was so simple in every possible way. So we see with all of the direct disciples that they all had some special feature. That's why I see a different color gem, a different shape and everything. With Swamiji, it was that strength and fearlessness and courage, and standing on that line of the self within. Swami Brahmananda, that depth and spiritual experience and ecstasy. Swami Ramakrishnananda, there's Guru Bhakti, that love and service of the Guru. Swami Akhandananda, this Daridra Narayana Seva, worshipping God in the poor and underprivileged, the orphan children. So all of them had something special to give. And for Latu Maharaj, Swami Adbhutananda ji, it'll be that guilelessness, that simplicity. That the two things that Thakur loved so much, that those who were straightforward and innocent and those who were guileless, he thought that they had a certain purity and a certain ability to have some type of realization. The problem with the guilelessness and the innocence is that we can't learn it and we can't practice it. That either we're born with it or we're not born with it. And somehow it seems that those who come from that type of background, village background, that simple type of life, that they grow up like that because they're not exposed to all the duplicity and sophistication of the big city and everything. So there's a great advantage. Although, I must say that many of these young boys that came to Sri Ramakrishna, Thakur said they were completely guileless, so it's also possible. But anyhow, this was really the special feature of Latu Maharaj, that without any formal education, without any type of refinement or sophistication or culture, anything like that, that he reached the same heights of spirituality that all of the other direct disciples did, and was considered to belong to that same class of the ever-perfect as Nitya Siddhas. So this is the story of this uneducated village boy who couldn't even learn the alphabet. He had no schooling. He came from a very poor family. His parents both passed away before he reached the age of 5, and he was sent to live with an uncle who was also poor, but a little bit more well-off. So he was given the name Rakturam, which somehow gets translated, I think, to, "O Rama, Raktu, protect me," something like that. Or protect the child. It was, so the parents, the prayer of the parents, "O Ram, please protect the child." Raktu Ram. So anyhow, that was his name. He probably didn't get called Latu until later when he came to Kolkata. We don't know exactly. We know very little about his early life, and if anybody asked him, he would more or less refuse to say anything, very reticent to say anything about how we grew up or anything like that. And we know that this uncle raised him. This uncle, as I say, had a little money and property, but he overspent and probably gambled and did other things like that. So he was in trouble for money. So just as Sri Ramakrishna, as a boy, went with his elder brother to Kolkata to try to earn some money, his uncle brought him along with him to the big city, to Kolkata, to try to find a job and earn some money for them. Now, they had some acquaintance, and in Kolkata, they arranged some type of job. His uncle got some type of job in the medical office of Ramchandra Datta. Ramchandra Datta, we know, was one of the first of the householder disciples to become take initiation, become a real disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, one of the most fanatical, and one of them, in terms of his belief that Thakur was a divine incarnation. He was one of the early ones to proclaim that to everyone, and even wrote a book about it and everything. So this is where he got the job in that office, and they arranged for this Latu to be like a houseboy, be like a servant boy in the house. We don't know how old he was. We don't know the year that he was born. Probably he didn't know it also. And I have my doubts about the date that we've chosen for his birthday. It could have just been some random date that they picked. Probably one or two of the other disciples were like that also. Anyhow, this is the day that we observe. But probably he was a young teenager, I'm guessing 13, 14, something like that. Roughly the age of many of the other direct disciples, maybe a little bit younger even. As I say, this is just kind of guesswork. So he was a very good worker, a hard worker, a little bit too frank. Sometimes he would get in trouble. He would speak whatever was on his mind, but they all loved him very much. He was very sincere. And remember, a young boy, never went to school really. And just as we find in India and in poor families, the kids, they'll just go to work. So many places you'll see this carrying tea and other things, these little 6, 7, 8-year-old boys. And so he would have been one of them. In his village, he used to just watch the cows graze and just wander off. He had this habit that followed him throughout his life of just wandering off every once in a while. And they wouldn't know where he was. They'd find him lost in thought somewhere. That was just part of his nature. So this was the life that he had. Now he had to follow some rules and regulations because he was working now. So he would do the shopping for the family. He would look after the young children, take them to the park and play with them and everything. He would take Ramchandra's lunch to him in the office. So he did those types of little chores, all different odd jobs and chores. And sometimes people would complain about him. As is always the case, people will always think that the servant boy is stealing or something. So they'll make complaints like that. And Ramchandra had absolute faith. He wouldn't believe any of that. He knew that the one thing that he was absolutely honest. So because he spoke his mind too much, people probably made comments about him and everything. So Ramchandra, now we know how devoted he was to Sri Ramakrishna. He would talk about him all of the time to everybody. And the Latu starts thinking, who is this Sri Ramakrishna? And he had such a great desire to meet him. So he kept begging him, please take me sometime when you go to Dakshineswar. So he took him there. And actually, they say that Ramchandra would find the Latu weeping sometimes. His longing for meeting Sri Ramakrishna or for God realization, however, well, we understand it, but he's some very deep-seated longing. So a young boy weeping sometime. So this Ramchandra, he was very happy that he could take him to see Sri Ramakrishna. And this was sometime around 1880. So possibly he came even before, a little before, the Rakal and Narendra and the others. He may have been one of the first of the direct monastic disciples to come to Sri Ramakrishna. So this is 1880, and we know that when these very special souls, these antarangas, these nitya siddhas, those who were destined to play a very important role in this Ramakrishna Leela, that whenever Thakur would see them for the first time, he would recognize. He would recognize this is someone who belongs to this place. He used to use that type of language. And when he sees this young boy, Latu, then he says to Ram, oh, who is this fine young boy that you've brought here? He said, where did you bring this boy with you? Where did you get him? I see some holy signs in him. So this was this ability that Thakur had, that he could see by looking at the face, by looking at even the body, physical signs, but he could look into the heart of someone. So he knew that this young boy was something very, very special. And he said, so I see holy signs in him. Then, for some reason, Sri Ramakrishna starts talking about this idea of this, who was a nitya siddha. This is a very interesting concept, that there are some who are born perfect, that they're not born because of any past karma. These will be not only the avatars and the Ishvara Kotis, but another special class, that because they take this human body, because they have a human mind, they have a little covering of this maya there, a very natural kind of thing, but it can easily be shaken off, and they can easily have some higher type of realization. So Sri Ramakrishna was explaining to him the nature of these nitya siddhas, obviously because he recognized that this Latu was one. So he said to him, The knowledge of those who are ever free souls, Nitya Siddha, only needs to be unveiled, as it were. They are like underground springs which remain covered until a stonemason, digging in the earth, removes a particular rock. Then the water begins to flow. So this was his explanation of this Nitya Siddha. Now, the other thing Thakur would do, if he really found that the person who had come to him was ready, he would touch him. He would give him some type of spiritual experience right then and there, right on the spot. So we see it in many instances that how this happened. So this happened again this day, that Sri Ramakrishna, he touched Latu. We don't know exactly how. Sometimes he would put his hand on the chest. Sometimes with his foot he would touch the foot. Anyhow, he touched him somehow, and this young boy, teenage boy, he goes into some ecstatic state. He has some very deep type of spiritual experience, and tears begin to flow from his eyes. The whole body begins to shake, and this lasted for about 1 whole hour. And Sri Ramakrishna is there, just observing everything, and he can gauge how long is it safe to allow him to remain in that state. And then at some point, he'll touch him again. Maybe stroke his back, whatever he does, and bring him back to some type of normal consciousness. So now, normal consciousness, if somebody has that type of experience, they're changed forever. There's no way that doesn't leave such an impression and doesn't remove something once and for all and awaken something once and for all. So this Latu now, he feels this tremendous attraction to go to Sri Ramakrishna whenever he can. So he keeps begging Ramchandra and finding excuses. Can I deliver this? Can I take this to him? And everything. So little by little, he starts going there, and then starts to make it clear that he would like to stay with Sri Ramakrishna, to live there in the Dakshineshwar temple garden. Now, an incident took place in 1881. This is a very well-known incident. It involves Hridoy, Sri Ramakrishna's nephew. He made that big mistake. He had some desire to worship the small daughter of Trailokyaнаth. He was the son of Mathur Babu, and he was the proprietor of the temple at that time, temple garden at that time. Now, for a Brahmin to worship a little girl who belongs to a lower caste, remember they're Kaivartas, they were considered to be such a low caste that none of the priests would want to serve in the temple even, that it was considered something very inauspicious. What will happen to the little girl? She's supposed to be the one offering her worship to the high caste in Brahmin, and here he's worshiping her. So they were furious, the Trailokyaнаth, and had Hridoy removed. So it was partly a blessing because Hridoy had become so arrogant and so controlling that Sri Ramakrishna felt suffocated. That at one time he said he contemplated just drowning himself in the Ganges, that his Hridoy was so controlling with him. So anyhow, Thakur felt somehow this is the Divine Mother, that she knows when to remove somebody. So anyhow, he has no attendant at this time. So this is the perfect time for Latu to come and stay in Dakshineshwar, because Thakur had to have somebody near him. If he even just walked out of his room thinking of going to the Kali temple, he could go into an ecstatic state and trip and fall. The other times he did. He broke his arm. So he had to have somebody to stay with him and look after him. So he requested Ramchandra, to allow this young boy Latu to stay with him. So this is how that first happened. He was one of the early ones to stay. We know Rakal for some time after that stayed. Baburam, others, they stayed at different times, but Latu was the first one. Now, one of the traits of Latu Maharaj was that he took everything literally, that whatever Thakur said to him that he didn't question it. This was the type of shraddha that he had. So any small thing, even, Thakur said, that this was the beginning of the end. He wouldn't question anything like that. One time, Latu was walking from their house to Dakshineshwar, and he passed some taverns. In those days, there were a lot of wine shops and alcohol shops and things that the British had set up and everything. And he told Sri Ramakrishna that he felt restless somehow, that passing all of these. So Sri Ramakrishna said to him that the smell of the wine probably caused that it made his mind think of lower things and everything. And he said that try to avoid that. Now, the walk from Ramchandra's house to Dakshineshwar was about 4 miles. So they found that Latu was taking such a long time to get there. So they asked, well, why does it take you so long? And he told them the route that he took, because there were these taverns and wine shops all over the place. He had to walk double the distance, avoiding everything, going in circles in this way and that way and everything. So Sri Ramakrishna said, no, my child, just try to avoid smelling the wine. You don't have to, you can walk on the same street if you have to. So Thakur said to him, Leto. Thakur had different ways of pronouncing things. Latu became Leto or Noto. So, Leto, I asked you not to smell wine. I didn't forbid you to walk down the street where it is sold. It won't hurt you to pass near the shop. And then he said, remember this. That means himself. Remember this, and no intoxicant will ever be able to disturb your mind. Latu, he had this habit that when he woke up in the morning, he had to see Sri Ramakrishna. That had to be the first thing that he saw. If he knew Thakur wasn't in the room, he wouldn't open his eyes. He would call out for him, or he would just feel his way out to try to find him. So Thakur knew this, so that he had to make sure whenever Latu was about to get up that he was nearby. So, so this was one thing. Then the other thing, which is far more important, is that one night, Sri Ramakrishna called Latu and found out that Latu was sleeping. Now, it was an odd time. It was probably 8 o'clock at night or something like that, an odd time for anybody to be sleeping. And Sri Ramakrishna gave him a good scolding. Thakur could scold people. He said, if you sleep in the evening, when will you meditate? You should meditate so deeply that the night passes unnoticed. Instead, your eyelids are heavy with sleep at this auspicious time. Did you come here only to sleep? So now, if we hear that, what will we think? We'll think, yes, I'll try not to get caught again sleeping at that time. Yeah. Now, Latu thinks that means I shouldn't sleep at nighttime at all. So, whole rest of his life, maybe at the end when he was very ill, but the rest of his life, he would stay up throughout the night and catch a little rest during the day. So he explained later, how can I express the deep sorrow that seized me at the Master's words? What a wretch I am, I said to myself, that having the rare blessing of such holy company, I should be wasting my time. Yeah, and remember, he's also saved from being a servant boy. This is what grace is not just that he's serving Sri Ramakrishna, but he doesn't have to do any of the menial things. Anyhow, what a wretch I am, that having the rare blessing of such holy company, I should be wasting my time. I started to whip my mind. Mercilessly, I splashed water on my eyes and began to walk briskly along the bank of the Ganges. When my body became overheated, I returned and sat near him. Again I dozed, and again I went out for a walk. Thus I fought the whole night. The struggle continued the next night also. It was a terrible fight. Sleep would overcome my eyes during the day, but I did not give up. The battle went on day and night. Finally, night sleep came under my control, but not day sleep. So he would just take a little nap in the morning or afternoon or something, and the whole night he would stay awake. So this continued, and all of his brother disciples, see, when they moved to Baranagar, Latu Maharaj also there. By this time, they've all taken their monastic vows. And he was very secretive with everything that had to do with his own private life. He didn't like to talk about himself. He didn't want people to know about his spiritual practices. Thakur always said that, the less people know about your spiritual practice, the better. He used to tell that to everyone. So nobody knew that Latu Maharaj wouldn't sleep at nighttime. So they just slept in one great big room, the Baranagar Math. They didn't have their individual rooms, one next to the other, and somehow the Latu Maharaj is staying awake all night long without letting the others know. And then he got caught one time. The Swami Swahananda, he was talking to M, and he told him, "You see at night that rascal Leto," they also started to call him that. "That rascal Leto doesn't sleep at all. During the first part of the night, he pretends to be asleep and even snores. But he keeps his prayer beads with him. And when the others are asleep, he sits up and starts counting his beads. One night, I heard the ticking of beads and thought a mouse might have come into the room. When I gave a rap, the sound stopped. A little later, the ticks began again. This went on for a while, and I began to suspect that it might not be a mouse. The next night, I stayed awake, and was very watchful. The moment I heard the first tick, I struck a match and found Letu sitting up, counting his beads. Then I laughed. Ah, you want to surpass us all. While we're sleeping, you're counting your beads. So this was the practice. One word from Sri Ramakrishna. And then he took that vow, and if he took a vow for something, he stuck to it. A very strong-willed person. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say about these Nitya-siddhas that just a slight awakening, anything could trigger that, this uddipana. He used to use that expression, that they were like dry firewood, very dry twigs, that you strike a match there and it'll catch instantly. So we see this in the life of Latu Maharaj, how he could go into these spiritual moods and spiritual states without even trying, not that they're sitting for meditation, everything just at the touch of Sri Ramakrishna or some bhajan, something going on like that. So we have one incident here. This one is related by Swami Brahmananda. So Rakal at that time, he had recently been married, but a young wife was staying with her family, and he often stayed in Dakshineshwar. So he also served Sri Ramakrishna. The funny thing is that both Latu Maharaj and Rakal Maharaj were there to serve Sri Ramakrishna. He's trying to get them to have these ecstatic experiences. They're reaching a state where they can't even look after him. So there are times when Thakur himself has to be the one looking after the others. So this is what happened. He said, as Sri Ramakrishna had asked Latu to wake them up early in the morning for meditations. This is Swami Brahmananda speaking. He said to all of them, dive deep today. Repeat the name of the Lord with great devotion. Then he began to sing, awake, O mother, Kundalini, awake. This is Jagoma, Jagoma. This is very inspiring type of song. Many of them would hear it, and Kundalini would awaken. He continued singing and walked around all the disciples, meditating. So they're all meditating on the floor. It's in his room. So Thakur's walking around them and singing this song. Then Rakal said, all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, my whole body began to shake violently. So he was also very, very prone to having these types of ecstasies and spiritual experiences. He and Latu both. At the same time, Latu let out a cry. The master placed his hand on Latu's shoulder and held him, saying, "Don't get up. Stay where you are." I could see that Latu was feeling great pain. Now, how to understand this? We don't understand this at all. That on the verge of having some very vast, deep spiritual experience, that there could be some feeling of pain, some spiritual. Very hard to understand these things, but anyhow, this is the way it's explained. I could see that Latu was feeling great pain, but the master refused to let him get up. After some time, I saw that Latu had lost all outer consciousness. The master was still singing the same song for more than an hour. So the Latu Maharaj, he could enter into very, very deep states of meditation. There's so many stories about him. Once he'd get into a mood, he'd find some place, some little corner, and sit and meditate. One time he found these empty boxcars on a train and goes in to sit for meditation. Meditation is so deep, he's not aware the train is moving. And by the time he finishes his meditation, the train is in some other place, several hundred miles away. What does he do? He gets out and walks back. He didn't mind anything. Anyhow, this is another story that Latu was sitting on the bank of the Ganges right there at Dakshineshwar, and the high tide starts to come, and the water starts to come up over his knees and up to his chest, and he's completely oblivious. He's so lost in meditation. So they rushed to Sri Ramakrishna and they said, "Latu, he'll be drowned. He'll be swept away." So Thakur came running and somehow was able to bring Latu down from that state of meditation. These are not made-up stories. Thakur himself is there. The Swami Brahmananda, others are there. One other story from this period. This is all while he's serving Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. Thakur, he used to give certain instructions. He would send his disciples sometimes to the Kali temple, sometimes to, here he's sending them to the Shiva temple. And see, we don't know what type of instruction. Many people ask, what was the Ishta Devata for the direct disciples? Different ones. And I think that different times he would say, today you meditate on this, tomorrow that he gave them all different types of experiences and everything. Anyhow, on this particular day, he sends him to one of the 12 Shiva temples. So he tells him to go sit there and meditate. And then Thakur probably thinks he'll be there for a half hour, something like that. The whole day goes by. And where's Latu? He doesn't know where he is. So he sent Ramlal, who was also serving at that time, to check on him. Found him lost again in deep, deep meditation. What type of samadhi it is, we don't know, but lost in meditation. And we know how hot it can get in India. Inside these temples, there's no air, also these little temples. So sweating profusely. And what does Sri Ramakrishna do? He himself starts fanning him. So picture this little servant boy sent there to serve Sri Ramakrishna, and Thakur himself is fanning him. And after a little while, Latu's body begins to tremble, and then he opens his eyes, he sees Sri Ramakrishna is there, and Thakur says, "My boy, it is twilight. When will you fix the lamps and light them?" He probably sent him in the morning. Now, Latu found Sri Ramakrishna serving him. How he must have felt that thinking he's there only for that one reason, to serve Sri Ramakrishna, and with that love and devotion and reverence he has, to think that Thakur himself is fanning him, it was something unimaginable to him. He became greatly embarrassed and protested vehemently. And then Thakur said, "No, my boy, it is not you that I am serving, but the Lord Shiva within you. Did you know he had entered into you?" So sitting in that Shiva temple, he was filled with this joy and bliss of that Shiva, the aspect of God, that impersonal, absolute aspect of God. Latu replied, I was gazing at the Shiva Lingam and saw a wonderful light. I remember only that the light flooded the whole temple. After that, I regained normal consciousness. So it could be 6 hours. We don't know how many hours went by. They're not completely unaware of anything that took place. So this is that play that we see that Thakur knew. In fact, he used to say, that's why he wanted this Baburam to come and serve him. You see, I have Latu and I have Varakal half the time. I have to take care of them. They're going into ecstasy and everything. Who's there to look after me? So this was that play that Thakur was very happy to do these things, of course. But it shows, anyhow, this spirituality of this young boy and this great reverence that he had for Sri Ramakrishna. Now, Holy Mother, there was a very special relationship between Latu Maharaj and Holy Mother because of his age, because of his social status and everything, that somehow he was allowed to keep this company of Holy Mother when the others, even the other direct disciples, who were probably more or less the same age, they didn't have that access to Holy Mother that he had. And she would remain veiled even before the others. But Latu Maharaj had that special privilege. So what happened, one day, Latu was sitting on the banks of the Ganges, which he used to do very often, and he would be meditating at that time. Now, Holy Mother is busy cooking and taking care of everything in the Nahabat, and Latu Maharaj is sitting there meditating. So Thakur said, Lokir Leto. Oh, he had instructed Latu to meditate on Divine Mother. He said, Lokir Leto, the one on whom you are meditating is now exhausting herself, needing flour for chapatis. So that means you look upon Holy Mother as the Divine Mother. Make no distinction whatsoever. And then he took Latu to Holy Mother, and he said to Holy Mother probably never met him before. Of course, she sees everything going on, but she from a distance. This boy is a pure soul. He will knead the flour and flatten the chapatis for you. Whenever you need any help, just ask him. So now the Latu became part of Mother's little, we can say, a household that Golap Ma, others would come sometimes, and Lakshmi Didi and stay there. There's Latu, the only one who wasn't a woman, a young boy. He got to do and help her with everything. So this was a privilege that only he had at that time. So many nice stories about Latu Maharaj and Holy Mother. This takes place much later, 1907. Latu Maharaj was staying at Balaram Bose's house. We know that many of the direct disciples looked upon his house as their second home. If they weren't staying in Belur Math, they went into Kolkata, there was always a place for them. So Swami Turiyananda, Latu Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda would spend sometimes some months of the year when there was malaria, he would stay there. So this Latu Maharaj, he also had a little room on the ground floor. Mother would stay upstairs. So one day, Holy Mother stopped in front of Latu Maharaj's room and said to him, Latu, my child, how are you? Now, just think of the mindset of this young boy. He's still thinking of himself as the mother's servant, the one who will, and the class distinction, but with a sweet type of relationship. Yeah, not out of fear or anything, but she's a high-class lady and he's nobody. This is an attitude. So he said to her, go away. You are an honorable lady. Why have you come to my room to speak to me? She should have called for him to go. This is not right that she would go. Why have you come to my own room to speak to me? Please go upstairs right away. I will not speak to you here. You could have sent for me, this is Abhiman. You could have sent for me and I would have gone to see you. I am your servant, you know. The Holy Mother laughed and went up to her room. Then another very touching incident took place. Holy Mother also stayed with the Balaram Bose at their house many times. Balaram had already passed away, but the whole family, they were all very devoted. So before going to Jaidambati, everyone goes to her room to take leave, to make pranam, to get her blessing. And so all of them went, took the dust of her feet, and then left. But Latu Maharaj remained in his room. He began pacing back and forth. Who was mother or father to a monk? He is free from all attachment. He is free from all maya, going back and forth, repeating all of this. And in the meantime, the Holy Mother came downstairs, and she heard Latu saying all of these things. So she said to him, "My child, it's all right if you don't accept me." Something like that. I don't know what the original Bengali is, but all right if you don't accept me. Immediately, Latu Maharaj, he ran out of the room, fell at Holy Mother's feet, and started weeping uncontrollably. He was a funny guy. He had this he didn't like to show anything, but sometimes he couldn't help. And Holy Mother also began to weep, and then Latu Maharaj, with his cloth, probably dirty cloth, he started wiping the tears from Holy Mother's face. And then he said, "You are going to your father's house. Please don't weep. You will return soon." Then the last thing I'll talk about is his devotion to Swamiji. See, Swami Vivekananda, we hear so many stories of temper and scolding his direct disciples. We have no conception of how deeply they loved him and respected him and honored him and depended on him for everything. And what a great blow it was when he died so young. So the Latu and Swamiji, they had a special type of relationship. Swamiji loved him very much and would tease. He liked to tease him. That he used to call him not Latu at Plato, because he would say, he has such great wisdom, like the Greek philosopher Plato. He would tease him like that. So this is that odd couple, we can say. The one that's giant intellect and earth mover, Swamiji, and the others are completely uneducated, completely simple. But they both had this very soft, loving heart, and they had this tremendous mutual respect for each other. Latu loved Swamiji, so both, they loved each other so much. They disagreed on things. This was natural. Many of the disciples did, that many of them did not understand this need to organize and to start lecturing and do social service work and everything. And Latu thought that maybe because Swamiji had been to the West, that his way of thinking had changed. Somehow others also thought like that. So when Swamiji came back on the trip to the West, then they all went to see him, but again, Latu Maharaj stayed back. He didn't go to see him, and Swamiji noticed, and then Swamiji himself went to Latu, not angry or anything, but just said, "Latu, why didn't you come? All of the others came. Why didn't you come?" And then he said, again, this little Abhiman, "You have Western disciples now, men and women." See, there's Latu. If Thakur said anything, don't keep the company of women. Again, that's the beginning and the end of it. Swamiji played a terrible trick on him once in Kashmir. He tells Latu to go in one of the houseboats, these connected houseboats and things, and without telling him that some of the Western women would be there. So he goes and he sees that they're sitting there. He dies in the water. No other way to get out of the boat. Oh, is that what it was? He asked the household, the owner of the houseboat, the daughter, to take some pan for him. So he can't keep the company of even a young girl. So he jumped over the side of the... Anyhow, this is a different story now. So Swamiji took Latu's hand and said, "You are my same older brother, Latu, and I am your same older brother, Naren." And a similar story with Swami Saranandaji. He also came back from the West, and Latu went into his room and starts to sit on his bed, and his feet are dirty, and starts to fold his feet on top of the bed and getting the sheets all covered with dust and dirt and everything. And the Swami Swahananda said, we know he didn't react to anything. So he said, Latu, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I just wanted to see if you'd react. I wanted to see if you became sophisticated living in the West. So that was his way of testing. Then another very, very touching incident. When Swamiji passed away, that of course all of the direct disciples were there. They went for the cremation and everything. But Latu silently left. He didn't stay for the whole thing. So the next day, somebody said to him, Latu Maharaj, everyone went to Belur Math to see Swamiji except you. People made some remark about it. And then Latu Maharaj replied, let them talk. Will their talk heal my pain? They do not know how much my brother Nadan loved me. I will miss his great love for me. His love for me was second only to the Master's, and now he is gone. So this was, he would try to hide this tender, soft heart and everything with the little rough exterior and everything, but this was his nature. So we'll go back a little bit, after Thakur passed away, he stayed some time at the Belur Math and at the other places, Alambazar and others, Kashipur. In between, made several pilgrimages, like all of the others did. Swamiji wanted him to stay, and Swamiji had some very strict rules at that time, that everyone should get up early in the morning and go for meditation. If they didn't, then they had to go beg their food that day, something like that. So there's a lot to Maharaj. He says to him, you're all great souls. I am not so great that I can sit for meditation just at the ringing of a bell. I don't know when I'll get the mood, this and that. And we have to remember that everyone else is sleeping at night. Yeah, so his situation, so he couldn't stay there. And he would just stay anywhere. He would wander, go place to place. You could find him where he spent a long time. One of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, he had this Basmati printing press. So he would live there with and these printers, they had a reputation. They would drink and gamble, and they were just rough characters. But there's a lot to like them. He got along with them very well. So he would just stay there and when the mood came, he would leave. He would go someplace else. So the last years of his life that he spent mostly on his own. He didn't follow any strict routine. He didn't do any of the work of the order that the others did. That he'd like to stay in Varanasi. So he was there mostly towards the end. And the last 8 years of his life were spent there. Sometimes it is Advaita Ashram. We have two centers there. The Advaita Ashram is the other side, does the hospital work. And other times he would just wander. He would show up at different places, somebody's house, a known person, or they never knew exactly that where he would be, where he would go, or anything. Everything was spontaneous with him. Now, I mentioned before that people were impressed with the very simple wisdom that he had. And we have some nice examples of that also. Once, he was visiting Khetri with Swamiji. This Maharaj of Khetri became Swamiji's disciple, very helpful to everyone, and to Swamiji particularly. And he was a highly educated man, and he had some assumption that Latu Maharaj was also an educated person. He knew he's not a brilliant intellect or anything like that, but they have these big discussions and everything. And one day he starts to talk about the different countries of the world. And Swamiji is there. And he said that this Maharaja, Khetri, could never have imagined that this Latu Maharaj had never seen a map or a globe in his entire life. He didn't know what country was where or anything like that. So Swamiji had to kind of change the topic and move it to a different direction to save the Latu from some type of embarrassment. We have some nice recorded teachings, a very nice book on Latu Maharaj, also a nice English translation by Swami Swahananda. Once he was asked about worship, and he said, "Do you know what worship is? Everything belongs to the Lord, so what is there to offer him?" But Thakur used to tell us, once a rich man went to visit his orchard. He saw the gardeners busy with their work. The caretaker approached him and presented him with a ripe papaya, saying, "Sir, I picked this ripe fruit for you yesterday. Please accept it." Now the owner knows that the garden, the trees, the fruit all belong to him, but won't he appreciate the love and thoughtfulness of the caretaker? Worship is like this. And just before he passed away, he was asked, "Do you now feel that the world is a burden?" This is a similar answer we get from Swami Swahananda. He said, "Look, when you dive deep into the Ganges, though there are thousands of pounds of water above you, you don't feel the weight. Similarly, if you plunge into God's creation, yet still hold on to Him, you will not feel its burden. Then the world becomes a place of joy." Swami Adbhutananda, Latu Maharaj, passed away in Varanasi on April 24th, 1920. So this will just be 2 months before Holy Mother passes away. And his passing away was something wonderful. We see this with all of the direct disciples, that they'll have some very deep experience, something at the very end. So from the time of his illness, he had some sore, became gangrene and everything. From that time on, that he became very meditative. He wouldn't talk much, very much indrawn. And he remained absorbed in that mood until his passing. Now we have a nice description from Swami Swahananda, because he also was in Varanasi at that time. During the last year of his life, he developed a blister on this leg, which developed into gangrene. He was visited by his brother disciples, Turiyananda and Sharadananda. Eventually, the gangrene worsened, and the doctors operated several times on successive days, but were unsuccessful. Adbhutananda died in the holy city of Varanasi at 12:10 p.m. on Saturday, 24th April 1920. Regarding his death, Turiyananda wrote in a letter to Josephine MacLeod, an American devotee of Vivekananda, "He showed no signs of pain during his illness, but the wonder of all wonders was that after his death, when his body was placed in a sitting position to conform with some of the funeral rites," there was no cremation done in Varanasi and mostly North India at that time. So either, and happened with some of the other direct disciples, they would ask, "Please put me in a sitting position," before they passed away. Otherwise, they would try to put them, as soon as the body was declared dead, they would try to put him in that position. And at that time, the samadhi would be just in Ganges. They would put the body there. Anyhow, but the wonder of all wonders was that after his death, when the body was placed in a sitting position to conform with some of the funeral rites, we found him looking so beautiful, so serene, so full of peace and bliss. His face beamed with light and an intelligence unspeakable, as if he were taking leave from his friends for the last time with an exhortation of affectionate benediction. So this is the very, very inspiring life of Latu Maharaj. If we ever think that, oh, how can we be great devotees, all this very high Vedantic study and everything, that we can't do it, he didn't do any of it. And it didn't make the slightest bit of difference that coming under the spell of Sri Ramakrishna, being born as an ever-free soul, that he could realize the same heights of spiritual realization that all of the others did, with all of their education and all of their sophistication and everything. So this guilelessness, this simplicity, truthfulness, all of these things are far more important in spiritual life. And this is the teaching that we really get from the life of Swami Adbhutananda. So let us take a few minutes and think about this very, very inspiring life of Latu Maharaj.